Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Welcome back to Fuel Your Legacy. This week, we have actually been speaking primarily on how to align your lifestyle with your core values. And to that end, we talked about that on Monday. We talked about the automatic millionaire and how to automate some savings and automate success in your life. And then today, we get to hear from a great friend of mine, Jen Du Plessis, and she is just an incredible person as far as what she's been able to accomplish and just who she is as an individual. I was out at an event of hers a few weeks ago, and one thing that really stuck out to me that I liked, even though she was having an event over the weekend and on Sunday, not very many people who hold events will schedule in time for you to make sure that you still can participate in your religious services. So that was really cool, just to show you the type of person she is, and maybe she'll go into detail of why that was important for her. But Jen herself is she's very accomplished. She's a podcast host herself, which she'll share about that. That's a business and lifestyle coach. She's an author. She's an international speaker. She's gotten to speak with all types of people, very successful people as well. And so it's just super exciting, really, the people that she's been able to do. She focuses on eliminating the overwhelm, stress, and compromising that people tolerate to achieve wealth. Instead, she practices, her practice focuses on helping people align their lifestyle with their core values and then create business plan to fit into that. So, Jen, with that intro, go ahead and share with us a little bit more about you, how you got to where you are, and what stage of life as far as business-wise you're in right now.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Sam. It's just a pleasure to be here, and it's such an honor to be able to share this with your audience because, we're friends, and that's what friends do, is that we help each other get our message out. And I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity, and I cannot wait to share with everybody. So the nuts and bolts of me is that I had a 35-year career in mortgage lending. That was a result of not pursuing a medical career as a cardiologist. I was pre-med, and I ended up going into architectural design and construction engineering at Colorado State University. And even after doing that, even after making that switch, my father was an architect, and I didn't want to work for him. And it was very difficult for women to get a job in architecture at the time. In fact, I was one of 67. There were 67 people in my class, and I was the only woman. And I knew the difference between a flathead and a Phillips, screwdriver. And that's how I got in. I mean, literally, that's what happened. Is we had to name tools to get in. But I couldn't find a job in that line of work. My father said, hey, you can work for me. And I said, nah, it's just not what I want to do. So I ended up getting into mortgage lending on a fluke. And, 35 years later, being in the top in the country, funding over $1 billion of loans. Last year in May of 2018, I shifted into speaking and coaching full time. And I had been doing that for about 18 years on the side. It fulfills me. And, God was just calling me to do this full time, and that's what I did. I decided to take that leap of faith and move into the new space of being able to share my success through other people. So if I can condense and compress other people's success from what I've learned into a shorter period of time, then that is what, brings me the most joy.
Sure. And you're very successful at it, which is good. I got to meet some of the people that Jen's been working with when I went to her event that she had out east, and it was awesome. And I'm curious, Jen, because I know that's like the business side of your life. I also know that you're a huge family person, and family's like way more important to you than your business. Share a little bit light on that as far as how you built this business. You worked there for 35 years while were raising a family.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So the sad part about this is that if I could do it all over again, I would do it differently. And so my message to everyone listening and to everyone that I speak to is really, sharing that message and saying, if I can help you make the change today, then you're going to be so much further along than I am right now, and it's not a success thing. It's in the fulfillment and the joy of life, right?
Yep.
And, and I think that comes with age and maturity. I'm 55, so, and I'll be 56 in November. And I think that's part of it. But gosh, I wish someone had asked me or pulled me aside and said, hey, look, you're just doing it all wrong, right? And so my message is to just let everybody know, that maybe we're doing it all wrong. I'm not to say that everybody isn't, but this is a new society, of people that are connected but not. We seem to be very connected online, but we're not connected. And so, I look back on how many years, pursuing and climbing that ladder of success was more important than my family. And even though I said it was important, I didn't act it out. And I can't tell you how many times, we were at dinner and the phone rang and I said, I have to take this call. And I was out in the parking lot, walking the curb back and forth and talking to these people. Well, my family was inside creating memories and I wasn't there. And, just not being present with them. And, my mom always said, she passed away, it'll be 3 years in a couple of months. And she passed away. And her favorite quote that she always said was, we flatter those we scarcely know. We please the fleeting guests, but we deal many a thoughtless blow to those we love the best. And I heard her say this over and over and over. And yeah. But it finally hit me. It was the tipping point for me that said, you're right. If my core values are truly, for me, whatever my core values are, but whatever someone's core values are, and being able to sit down and do that assessment of that, right? And most people don't know how to do that. And I know you're excellent at helping people do that as well. But just identifying your core values and making sure that they align with your life. Are you practicing these core values? Why are you tolerating them not to be practiced? And how can you change the way that your behaviors are so that your core values, are part of the fulfillment of your life? And so for example, if your core value is family, then why are you working till 11:30 every night? If family is truly that important, then how can we change that and make them actually important?
Sure. And I think something that I struggle with, but I think sometimes people will hear that and think, well, my family should be one of my core values. And then they start feeling guilty or shamed that it's not. And I will raise my hand and say I'm in that category. Right now, family is important to me, but I wouldn't say it's one of my core values. And I don't know if that's because of how I was raised. We were all, my immediate family, we were all raised very independently. And so although family is important to me, friendship often for me trumps family. Like if I had to put them in order, my friendships will be more important to me than my family. And now if my family becomes part of that friendship, then that's great. But and I don't know why that is, other than just like we were raised to be very independent. And so I found
and the thing is, Sam, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, what are your core values, and are you aligning your core values on a daily basis? If not cussing, if ethics, if I'm trying to think of the word, not being sexually active, if serving your clients. I mean, all these huge sort of bipolar values is it doesn't matter what your values are. The question is, are you aligning them with your business? Because what I see so much is everyone wants to be like everybody else, and you're not true to yourself. And that lack of authenticity is why we all struggle in our businesses and our lives, because we're just trying to be like everybody else. And one of my favorite quotes is, be yourself, everybody else is taken.
Yep. I agree. It's interesting because I actually went through this. I've done this exercise multiple times of identifying your core values, but Jen at her workshop, she had us do it again. And the sheet that she gave us to identify what our core values were, there was only one of my core values that I believe I hold that wasn't on there, and that was agency. But my core values, and I talked about this on Monday, is gratitude. I would say independence, but it's more accurately stated as agency, and then candor. Like those are my three things that I have to be present in my life at all times for me to feel fulfilled. And I love that I can create a career around that. But to your point, it doesn't matter what your values are. The question is, are you aligning yourself with them?
Right. And, I love the candor, because I know with what you do in your practice, if you're stepping back and saying, well, I'm not really going to tell them the consequences, the sometimes unintended consequences of their decision. But the candor says, you know what, it might not be what they want to hear, but they need to hear it.
Yeah. And there's probably more tactful ways to share the candor. But again, for me, it's not in my natural state of flow to stress about tact. I get a lot of people who say, well, Sam, you're losing X amount of clients because you're not tactful. I say, you know what? That's okay for right now. If I decide to change a core value, and that's another thing, just because a core value is set at one point in your life doesn't mean that it can't change. And if at some point that changes, then that will become a core value of mine. As of right now, I'd rather be absolutely clear and never have to think back, like, did I lie to somebody, or did I say something, or did I omit a truth because I was trying to be tactful about it? No, I'm just going to say how I feel. And if you ask me tomorrow how I feel, I'll tell you then how I feel. It may have changed, but you're going to get how I feel.
And I love that. And you're right, because when you go through these different, I call it seasons of your life, you're younger, I'm older, I'm a different season. I'm not in the winter, or the fall where it's ending, God forbid,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
things change. I mean, your core values do change as you mature and grow and get experiences in your life. And that's okay too. Let them happen. But don't go against the grain with them. And I think that's the biggest thing about the core values is when people go against the grain, they're not authentic, and it results in them chasing relationships, chasing friendships, chasing business, instead of having the business come to them, the friendships come to them, the family interaction coming to them, because they're open and they're in alignment, and it's very authentic. And, in this day and age, we think we're very connected. We are less connected than we used to be because of all the social media. And, and I just think that that's, a really, really a core value. And of course you can't experience that until you've lived a longer life like I have, right? You live this life that says enough is enough. I have to leave this earth feeling that I left an impact on my friends and family, and not that I left an impact on myself, because that doesn't matter.
Right. You're gone. So I'm
right.
curious then, Jen, what was the story, if you were to tell the story of the experience, or basically when the penny finally dropped and you started thinking about building a legacy rather than just living life of business?
Yeah, it's such a good question, because there's like a whole bunch of stories in there. I don't think it's just like, I woke up one day and said, okay, that's it, I've had enough. I was giggling because, in my book, Launch, How to Take Your Business to New Heights, I, tell my story. And it was the first time I ever became very vulnerable about my story. Until then, I was keeping that coveted. I didn't want to share my story. I felt like people would be judgmental about me. And it's funny that you said the penny drop because, in the story, and I'll tell the story. My uncle, my father was an alcoholic. I'm one of 37 first cousins. My mother is one of 10. My father is one of 3, so very small family on his side. But on the side of my mom, there's a lot of us cousins, and we're very faithful family. And I had an uncle who said to me one day, you're going to end up just like your father. You're going to be an alcoholic. You're going to be poor. You're going to smoke. You're going to drink. You're not going to amount to anything, because that's how things were thought then. And that for me was a major turning point. So if you've ever watched Forrest Gump and you saw Jenny run into and it's ironic that her name's Jenny, and I looked just like her, just a little, blonde toe-headed girl, poor. And I ran, she runs into the cornfield, and starts praying and saying, please, it's different circumstances, but
Sure.
I did the same thing. I came into the house one day, and my father had a shotgun to my mother's head. And it wasn't the first time. It wasn't the last time. But it was the trigger. I ran into the cornfield. We lived next door to my grandparents, and I ran into their cornfield, and I got down on my knees, and I could feel the cold of the dirt and the sun on my face, and I just literally prayed that I wouldn't hear a shotgun go off. And that was the turning point for me that said things have to change. I'm not going to let history repeat itself. And from that moment on, I just had this insatiable drive for success, whatever that meant. And of course, in the early years, it meant money and things. And in my later years, it means relationships and leaving a legacy and a dynasty for my family that they can talk about me not because she worked all the time and made a bunch of money, but because she was present and she shared and she played with the kids and she told stories. And so that was, one of the major turning points. And my uncle always had a nickname for every single, one of the 37. He's 85 years old today. He'll be 86 in a matter of fact, on Sunday. And matter of fact, I think his birthday might be today. I better make a phone call. But he'll be 86, and he said, my nickname was Jenny who ain't got a penny. And, it didn't resonate with me. I carried a penny around on my shoe because I didn't understand it. I was too young. And I said, no, I have a penny. Look here. But I didn't understand that it meant that I didn't have anything. Right. And so that was a major turning point for me. And then later on, 35 years doing anything, I think, whether you're a teacher, military, or, in my case, a lender, you're looking for ways that you can make an impact on life. And I believe that in our early years, we learn, and then we spend the majority of our life earning, right? We learn, we earn, and then we get to the point where we want to return. And I'm at that stage in my life where I want to give back and help people realize what I've realized, but in a shorter period of time, so that when they get to the age of 55 or 56, they are light years ahead of me, because I shared, one quick story about, the importance of aligning your goals. And so my premise is that a life of values or with values adds value everywhere in your life, whether it's your health, your finance, your relationships, your physical, your faith life, at your business. It adds value when you can align your core values.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the value system is so important when it comes to living a legacy. I think so many people that I've talked to, either guests on the show or just in my meetings with people, they're so a lot of people get focused on leaving a legacy, and they don't realize that every day that they're living, they're leaving. Like, you're leaving a legacy whether you're doing it intentional or not. Just some people's legacy is forgotten because that's their legacy. They didn't leave something big enough, but they didn't live their legacy. They thought that they could just work their whole time to leave a token legacy at the end of their life, but that's not really what happens. You have to live your legacy, and that's why making sure your whole life, business, fitness, every area of your life is centered on those core values, because those values will ultimately be your legacy.
Yeah, yeah, true. Another thing my mom used to say is, in 100 years, will it matter? And so I would freak out about, the house isn't clean and yell at my kids and all this stuff. And she said, and don't get me wrong, my house is still clean, right? Because I'm German. I'm German. It has to be. But, she would say, because she would come over and see me, I'm screaming at the kids and going, the house isn't clean and we have to clean the house and it's group clean and, and all this stuff. And she said, honey, in 100 years, it's not going to matter. But what will matter in 100 years is the stories that your great great grandkids are telling about how wonderful you were and how giving you were and how present you were. And, everything that I want to leave is that legacy. And it really started with me writing my own obituary. What it was going to be. Yes, she's very successful. She's a top producing loan officer. She did over $1 billion of loans and, all this stuff. That doesn't matter. What matters is what you leave inside of people, not outside, not just the money. And I know you work with money, but it's not just the money, but it's how people feel about you and that legacy, to be able to talk about you 100 years from now and say, gosh, she was just wonderful in this one area. And boy, it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. It is. That's it. Fascinating you bring that up. I do work with a lot of my clients with money, but the premise of Fuel Your Legacy, and this is like my greater brand, is really to take and encompass all of the things, not just the financial aspects. So a large part of what I do with my clients is help them identify what legacy do they want to leave. I mean, that's there, because sometimes you're right. Sometimes it is financial and they want to leave this financial legacy, but other times they want to leave legacies of faith. They want to leave legacies of charity. They want to leave legacies of just family, and money always comes into it at some point, because if you're stuck slaving away at your job, then you don't actually have the ability to, I mean, even some people, they slave away just for enough to put food on the table and barely survive, and they're spending 16 to 18 hours a day slaving away doing that. And if I can help somebody understand money a little bit better, understand value exchange, understand how it actually all works, then maybe if I could just give that family an extra 6 hours, so now they're only working 12-hour days, which is still outrageous, but 12-hour days versus 18-hour days, that they just got 6 more hours a day with their family. That's a life-changing thing in all areas of their life. And so I like looking at legacy as a more comprehensive, what do you want to be remembered as, rather than how much money do you want to leave? Or so many people think legacy is just about money, and it's not.
Right.
You pointed that out.
Right. And that's what I've grown to learn. And I'm so thankful that, Sam, that you've learned that so quickly, because it took me 35 years to understand that. Understand it's not about that. And I think that what people do is they spend their lives sacrificing their health for their wealth, right? Mm-hmm. And then later years sacrificing that same wealth to maintain their health. And it's because we go with that drive, at that pace, and we don't just stop, and a phrase that I use all the time is to slow down to speed up instead of speeding up to slow down. Mm-hmm. And, to stop and smell the roses, so to speak, and, again, be present. And that's really what my lifestyle business mastery is all about, is developing a life, determining what that lifestyle is, like looking at your core values and saying, what is the lifestyle I want? And then building your business around that and your life around that, rather than driving and, going at it day in and day out and repeating same day, sort of the time to make the donuts. And for those of you that are young, it was a commercial with Dunkin' Donuts. He'd get up at 3 a.m. and go, oh, it's time to make the donuts. And if, we can focus on the lifestyle that we want and then build the business around it, rather than, chasing the almighty dollar and the success. And we all get that. I get that we want that, but where are your priorities? So chasing that dollar and trying to squeeze in your family and your lifestyle and the things that fulfill you. So that's what we do in our coaching, is just, reverse that and say, okay, what do you want? What do you want? And then let's build that business around it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm curious, when you were making this transition. I don't know if you experienced this when you were making this transition from the mortgage world into the coaching world, or if it was previously when you were ramping up your mortgage industry. But tell us a story of your biggest naysayer in your life, and maybe it's in childhood, maybe it's your uncle, but your biggest naysayer, and how you learned to silence them in your own mind.
Yeah, I don't know if I've actually silenced them, but it's actually my husband, because we're both in the same industry. About, I guess, 18, 20 years ago, I had invited him into lending and said, we just celebrated our 36th wedding anniversary a couple days ago. So we've been together for a long, long time, and now we're high school sweethearts.
Awesome.
And,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. And, so I invited him into mortgage lending about 18, 20 some years, maybe more, 20 some years ago, because I was doing so well and I just needed someone. And he was sort of my backup. At night, my kids were putting packages together for presentations. My husband was driving properties to taking pictures for me. And we're just so busy. I was so busy. And at that time, it wasn't like it is now where loan officers have assistants and things like that. And, so I invited him into the industry. And so for many, many years, we worked together. But, I knew that I was, 15 years ahead of him, and that, my passion for the whole business. I mean, I still love the business. I love the numbers of the business. I love the people. I love coaching people that are in the business. But my passion started turning, and I was being called by God to do something else. And it really started when I became, one of the top in the country the first time. And lots of people were calling me and wanting to pick my brain, so to speak. And then, after a while, it became very expensive to give as much time to people, to give them suggestions and ideas. And I thought, well, how could I get the answer out to people? And that's when I started my podcast. And that was 3.5 years ago. And I said, I'll answer your question on a podcast, because that way, not only you, but everybody else will be getting the answer,
Sure.
that you have. And, I've been speaking for about 20 years now. I have a lot of continuing education classes and things like that. So I've been speaking here and there. But about 3 years ago, the podcast sort of propelled my business, to speaking, and gave me that voice out in the world. And people were saying, well, now can you speak can you this and can you that, and can you teach this class, and can we hire you? Can you coach me? And it started creating some turbulence in the two boats that I was standing on. I was standing on this, big Titanic of 35 years that I knew inside out and backward. It was stable. It had gone through lots of waters over the years, with rates high and low and markets changing. And then I had this little dinghy that was my, sort of speaking, coaching, podcasting business. And I wasn't quite ready to snip the line and let the dinghy go, because it hadn't grown enough to be able to sustain itself. And so I was, kind of balancing these two things for quite some time. And then life happens, divine intervention comes in, and there was an opportunity, that it was, do I stay in mortgage lending and continue to do what I'm doing? Yes, I'm successful, but I'm not fulfilled. Or do I take this leap of faith, and move into the speaking space? And I had, always thought I'm building this bridge. Because I think one of the things that a lot of people do is they're on their Titanic, this thing that they've had for, career, and they get upset. They have this day that, changes their lives or whatever, and they jump in the water. They just jump in the water. And so I would say that, what I learned was that I sensed it. I knew it. I'm very spiritual. So for me, I was praying a lot about it. And I knew that this was a calling that I wanted to come to, to help other people. And it wasn't as spiritual as it sounds, because I wanted to just strangle people. I wanted to say, just stop talking about being successful. Stop talking about making calls. Stop talking about saving money. Stop talking about investing. And, just do it. And so that's why my podcast is called Stop Talking, Take Action, Get Results. And, I knew that calling was there. So I started building that bridge so that I could leave the lending industry on my terms.
Mm-hmm.
so that I would be in a position that the day that I was done, I could leave. And that's exactly what happened. I didn't want the industry to leave me. I wanted to leave the industry on my terms. So my naysayer is my husband, who says, I'm just so tired of this and tired of this, but he doesn't take any action to make it different. And so I worry about him, because now it becomes, I'm taking it on and saying, well, how do I get him out of lending? But the bottom line is, he needs to get himself out of that. He needs to build a bridge so that he can have that same lifestyle, that same income level when he's ready to leave. But I can't do it for him. And that was something that, because we were at a retreat together, and it was a major breakthrough for me, is, I have such a giving heart, but I wanted to get him out of the business. But I realized that I can't get him out. He has to get him out.
Sure.
And so for any of your listeners, that, if you're thinking about, changing and switching gears and shifting into a new career, not necessarily retiring, but shifting in a new career, is you have to plant the seeds and start growing that, or start building that bridge to get you there, so that you aren't miserable. Your family isn't miserable because of it, so that you can leave on your terms when you're ready and hit the road running, which is what's happened with my business in the last year. Is I needed that. It's sort of like snipping the tethers that hold down a hot air balloon.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like, I'm blowing up the balloon. It's this color. It's this big. I know where I'm going. And now it's time to snip those tethers that are holding it to the ground. But if you're going to leave and you're just going to walk out into a field and say, where's the balloon? Where's my balloon?
Yeah.
What color do I want? How big do I want? You can put yourself in a really, really bad situation.
Sure. And I think to that point, it's very, especially in relationships, marriages, this happens all the time. I see it on the financial level, but I see it everywhere. And it could be in business. It could be in so many different situations. But sometimes somebody who's achieved success, they desire to help other people get this. I go through this a lot with my wife, Charlie. I'm very in this regard. You are farther ahead in mortgages. I've because of my life experiences, I've progressed a lot in the mentality space and learning how to manage my actions and have agency to actually choose how I react to things rather than just pure reaction. I'm now choosing how I'm acting based on my observations. And for her, she's 10, 15 years behind me, and it stresses her out and it stresses me out because I'm like, I just want you the way I think. But the reality is, if we even if you could get your husband out of mortgages, like financially make sure that he never had to work again, mentally he may not be ready to move on yet, because he might not feel like he's conquered it to the level that he wants to conquer it before he moves on. And I think that thing can happen in a relationship where you may want your spouse or your business partner or somebody to move on and come join you somewhere. But if they're not ready to leave what we would consider misery, if they're not ready to leave that behind, it's not our job to make them leave. We can keep inviting them. We can say, look, this is how my life is. Not from a demeaning state, but just show them that there's other options. But until they make that choice to move, we really should just be supportive of our spouses, of our business partners, rather than kind of making them feel bad about their decision to be where they are. And that's where I finally gave up and said, if you want to ask questions about where I'm at and what I'm doing, and I do believe that he sees that there's a level of I was gonna say sobriety, because that's not the case, but there's a level of contentment that I now have. There's peace in what I do, and it's not that the mortgage lending business was bad. It was wonderful to me for 35 years, but I've just grown past that. It's a new season in my life, and it wasn't fulfilling me, and I wanted a way that I could feel fulfilled, that I could wake up every day and say, who can I help today? And he's just not there. And that's okay, but I had to get past that, and I think that's a real key point. Yeah, no, I love it. So I'm curious then, what would you say your secret weapon is? Like, if you were to focus in on one specific habit, mindset, or behavior that you've used to create your legacy of meaning, what would you say that is? And then how can we as a Fuel Your Legacy audience adopt that practice into our lives?
Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, there are several things that I contribute to my success, but if there's one thing, I mean, aside from faith, so let's get past faith. I mean, faith is everything. I really trust that God is helping me. And then if I just trust in him, he'll provide for me. Mm-hmm. And man, that's, and I know that's words, but it's hard. It is hard to trust, right?
It is.
It is hard to trust when you have a bad day and you have a bad month and you have a bad year. It's hard to trust, but I'm still working on it, and I continue to work on it. But that, aside from that, I would say that, my word is discipline. My word is discipline is that, if you want to get to here from here to there, it's all about discipline. It's, again, these core, it comes back to these core values, the value that you have in your life is that it's really hard to tell a colleague and a client no when you want that business. You want to serve them, you want to make everybody happy. And it's really, really hard to tell someone no when you've got your daughter's recital, some type of recital. And it's so easy to just push them aside. Like my mom says, flatter those we scarcely know and please with leading guests, but deal many a thoughtless blow to those we love the best. It's so easy to say, well, she's got many recitals, I can do that. But she doesn't. You have many clients, you can tell them no. And so it's the discipline of saying that, I'm in demand and not on demand. And when you get control of your life in that manner, the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. It's not a nasty thing. You're not saying that, but we just have this tendency to say, well, I had my daughter's recital, but, you're a client and you're more important. And then you talk to the client and then they don't even buy from you. So really what was lost, and so for me, it's discipline in all areas of my life, discipline in bookending my days, discipline in my priority management, which is AKA time management. I don't believe that you can manage time, but I do believe you can manage your priorities. Mm-hmm. So discipline in all areas. And I mean, there's like 4 or 5 other things that I believe in, but I would say that the overall is my values, knowing my values, and then holding myself accountable and being disciplined to live by those values.
Awesome. I love. Does
that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. I love it. I would say anybody who's listening, go back and re-listen to that last 5-10 minutes and figure out how can you then apply that into your life. What action steps could you take today? Even if it's just one thing, what action steps could you take today to begin to have more discipline in your life? The one thing I think is really interesting, because I made this shift in my business, not specifically with family time. Haven't quite 100% got there, but I probably will after this. After this conversation, just because it's hitting me, I've already done that in one step, but the discipline of saying, look, I'm not serving clients unless I get a certain thing in return. It's terrifying because you're right. There are some times where you are saying no to sometimes thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business over your period of time of saying, no, this is my standard. And if you don't want to play by that standard, then you're just not a client for me. That can be intimidating, especially when you're sitting across, knowing what, if you are willing to maybe bend your standard just a little bit, when there's dollar signs there, and there's dollar signs there. But choosing to say, no, this is my standard. I'm not breaking for anybody. And if you want to be part of me, then you can be in the business this way. Otherwise, we're not moving forward. And since I've done that, my business is actually
grown.
Oh yeah, really grown.
Yeah.
If the same thing, if when I do that with my family and say, no, this is my family time, even letting clients know that, no, I can't do that. I've got something with my family. That gives them an opportunity to, 1, see that you are living to a value, and 2, it does help them understand that you're not a robot and that you're not some dispensary that they can just push the button whenever they need it, but you're somebody to be respected. You're a human. You have a life, and it gives them a lot more respect and perspective on what they actually are getting from a value perspective. of the service you're offering. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's like, I mean, there's a couple different scenarios you can talk about, but one would be, if you like chick flicks, or you like horrors, or you like action movies, you like dramas, it's that what you're doing is you're attracting rather than chasing. You're attracting people and friends, okay? Because this isn't just business, it's friends, friendships. You're attracting people that love what you have to offer. And that's the in demand. The other story I always tell is about, I love, love, love peanut butter cookies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just talk about peanut butter cookies all the time. And I'm air quoting this because it's not peanut butter cookies, right? But if what I'm talking about and what I am, serving my clients with, my product, my service, or whatever is peanut butter cookies. And in your case, it's like family time. You're saying, hey, it's family time, and that's your peanut butter cookie. The idea is to attract people who like peanut butter cookies, and the rest of them will say, look, I don't like that he put his family first before me, and so be it.
Mm-hmm.
Move on, because ultimately those people complicate and not complement you and your practice. They'll ultimately complicate you all the way to the end. And so we want to attract the people that align with us, and we want to work with people that align with us and that complicate or complement us. And, I can't tell you how many clients I have fired, how many referral sources I've referred because they aren't complementary to me. Mm-hmm. They're complicating my practice and me and my life because they want me to work under their circumstances and not under mine. And it's not a nasty thing. It's just, digging your feet in the sand and saying, look, in order for me to have a fulfilling life and to have a life and not be, running 100 miles an hour and not being present to anybody, I have to put my foot down and say that these are the people I want to work with. And when you work with me, you get 1,000% of me because you're my kind of people. Mm-hmm. I don't have to work with everybody, right? We just don't. We don't have to work with everybody, but in sales and in service industries, we feel like if we don't work with everybody, we're not working with anybody. But the bottom line is if you're trying to solicit to everybody, you're soliciting to nobody.
Yep.
And we want to make sure that what we're doing is we're pushing out our cookie and attracting people that like our cookie, and they'll come to us and they'll be our tribe, right? They'll be the people that we want to work with and that love working and that understand that family's first, in my case and in your case, right? Mm-hmm. And understand that family's first and that God's first. And if not, there are plenty of other people out there that will find that for us. And you can go find somebody who doesn't put family first and will put you first.
Yep.
And that'll work for you, right? And so it's really important for us to understand that we just don't have to be everything to everybody all the time. And it's not a nastiness. It's just, saying, look, life is short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Life is short. And I just want to be, I want to be with my family, but I also want to be successful. So I'll do whatever I can in the time I have available. But then when I'm done, I'm with my family. And in my case, as you know, I'm a competitive ballroom, Latin, and swing dancer. So for me, because my kids are all grown up and I have grandkids. So for me now, it's I have to dance every night because that's my release. And you get a better me tomorrow mm-hmm. because I've had the opportunity to sharpen my saw.
Yeah. No, it's
my axe.
So, yeah, whatever it is, you just got to sharpen it and make sure that it's always on point and ready to. It's so interesting. The taking time for yourself is necessary. I'm curious though, when you were going through these transitions and building your legacy and choosing to leave kind of the corporate setting and go off and be your own thing and build your own business, how did you manage the income and the finances to make sure that you're kind of floating and staying either profitable, at least paying bills throughout that time when you're building?
Yeah, well, I've been very fortunate because, I had a very, very, very substantial income in the mortgage lending space. But I've always wanted to make sure that I could, sustain myself as a speaker and a coach and a podcast host, and an author on my own. I didn't want to commingle my personal funds. While I could have, and I could have hired all these people and been, 10 times further along. I didn't want to commingle. I wanted to make sure that I was, completely sustainable on my own. And so first of all, I didn't quit my job until I was, right.
Mm-hmm.
But and again, I had said that I wanted to leave on my terms, wanted to be able to leave on my terms. So
Right.
I was prepared to leave several years ago. My goal was to be 55. My goal was not to say I was 40 years in the mortgage business, right? And so it kind of came at all at the same time. But, so the goal was to make sure that I could replace the income that I felt like I needed to replace, not completely replace my income, because lending, it's a 7-figure income.
Sure.
So it's not that I needed to replace that, but I kind of dumbed it down and said, okay, what's really important? I don't need to have great outfits anymore. I can wear the same thing over and over. I don't need to have dry cleaning. I'm not going to be driving. I'm not going to be taking people to dinner and to lunch and to sponsoring all these things. So I started looking at my expenses and saying, what was the bare minimum I needed to do? And once I had enough coaching clients, and it was hard, because I was working and then I'd come home and I'd work. I had to make sure that I was doing all those activities.
Sure.
But it was very intentional in what I did. It wasn't loosey-goosey. And, the day that I made the money that I needed to make to sustain myself outside of lending was the day I said, okay, it's on my terms. So now I can when I feel like it. And I think it was about 2.5 years that I sustained that income. To really dig in and make sure that it was going where it needed to go. It wasn't just 1 month that it said, I said, okay, so now I've made, enough to cover my expenses and whatnot. And of course, at this point in time, even my little naysayer of my husband was very, very supportive. He said, look, I'll take care of the household expenses as long as you can take care of the expenses of your business, and that was the key thing is, could I have consistent, sustainable income to take care of the expenses of the business and then some, and I also had a little bit over a year's worth of expenses, not 6 months, but a year's worth of expenses saved up so that I could engage with the new assistant and pay for marketing and, travel and do all those things so that I wasn't finding myself in a really bad situation. But it was a wonderful day when I said, I've done it. I've already done it. So I could leave if I wanted to, but it wasn't for a couple more years before I actually made that decision. And that was, again, I had said, I want to leave on my terms. Just because I made the money didn't mean I was going to leave. It was that I wanted to see how stable it was going to be before I made that transition. Does that make sense? Oh,
absolutely. I think that is a key thing. I'm so glad you brought that up, because so many people, especially in my industry, is a lot like yours, where it can be very lucrative once you understand it. Well, a lot like the mortgage lending one,
yeah,
and coaching too. It's the same, right? All of it means you have to go out and get clients and get them to trust you, build relationships, and that takes time to build up a reputation, to build up the trust in that industry. And so many people, when they get it the first month, like, wow, this thing's awesome, so much money. And then they quit their job and they don't give themselves time to be consistently replacing their income and live with
right.
income, consistently replace that before they move into that full time. And I just love that. I love the analogy of the boat versus the cruise ship. It's so true, the need to orchestrate, and then once you've got it, once you think you figured it out, let it ride for 2 or 3 years, and really be confident.
Yes.
That you know where you're going, you know where the trajectory is, you've got a solid business plan of how it's going to be built over the next 2 to 3, 5 years when you have more time and put into it. Because so many people, like you said, they jump off the ship. Even if they have a little dinghy there, they'll jump off the ship and they're like, oh, I only have to take care of this little dinghy now. I can go swimming more often. And then they fail because they forget to keep their dinghy floating and growing. And it's
right. And there's turbulence, and it's sustaining that dinghy, just because today when you decide you're going to jump on that dinghy, it's great, sunny weather, in tomorrow it might be horrible storms and you're going to drown. And so that's why this sustainability, and I think that's why, as I built this, I said, just because I hit that day that, hit that crossover that one day doesn't mean I'm going to make the decision to jump ship right away. I'm going to see how long I can sustain it. Mm-hmm. And so, thankfully I built it a little more, which was good. And so that part was really good. Learned some lessons, found that I went down some wrong roads and the income went backwards before it went forward again. Yep. And, so you're going to have turbulence as well. And you need to kind of weigh out those seasons to see, how is it in winter? How is it in summer? What does it mean in the spring and the fall? And how does, money and people and their buying tendencies and their needs, how do those change so that I'm sustainable, over a multitude of seasons rather than just, hey, I hit it, let me jump off.
Yep. No, exactly. I love it. So I'm curious, Jen, how can the audience, Fuel Your Legacy audience, get a hold of you, get a hold of your book? Where do they connect with you on social media or your websites? Like, where can they get a hold of you? And then if you can also at the end of this send them to me in a message, I'll make sure they're in the show notes for everybody. But yeah, introduce your book and introduce kind of the different places they can get a hold of you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So the book is called Launch, How to Take Your Business to New Heights. You can find it on Amazon, and it's by Jen Du Plessis. And I know in the show notes you'll have the proper spelling of my name, because that's one of the biggest things for me is my spelling of my name. Technically, it's pronounced Du Plessis. It's very French, and it's my husband's name. And it's mine too, though, right? 36 years after marriage. It's mine. But Du Plessis, and that's how you can find me on all the social media. It's at Jen Du Plessis or Jen Du Plessis 22. It's my favorite number, but we'll have all the links in the show notes for everybody, so you can get the exact. But the other best way to reach me is just go to my website at jenduplessis.com, and and there's a place that you can send me a note if you want to have a conversation. You want to have I really just encourage people to have conversations with me to see if there's anything that I can help them with. And if I can't, that's okay too. The idea is just to help people as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And I have a new book coming out, coming out probably around December, which is From Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through All of the Glass Ceilings, because I didn't break through one or two. I had to break through thousands of glass ceilings. And, it's moving from feeling that, your image or your everything that you're being is about success into that doesn't matter. It's how significant am I and how am I impacting other people? So I wanted to share my story about that and many other stories of other people that have, left their industry and said, that was my identity and now it's gone. So what's next? For me.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And then I want to just add, because she didn't talk about it, but she has a very, very good newsletter that she sends out in emails that I would suggest you getting on. I don't know how you get on that, Jen, but
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry.
Maybe she just personally emails me a lot. I feel
no, I don't. Actually, I don't. I don't even have newsletters. I don't, I don't usually do stuff like that because it's, I'm very personal. I love very personal relationships so I don't. And so really how I communicate with people is through my podcast, which again is Stop Talking, Take Action, Get Results. And that's, where I share as much as I possibly can in the time we all have together. I want to give as much value as I can.
That's awesome. Maybe I'm mistaken. I just feel like I see stuff maybe it comes through like Facebook Messenger or something else that shows up in my email.
I don't know. That's crazy. I don't know. It'd be great because I'm not paying for somebody to do newsletters, so I love it.
Somebody's advertising for Jen, and it's awesome.
I'm getting it free. Yay!
I'll have to find out how to get on that for you guys. But that's awesome. Yeah, her podcast's incredible. Now, this next section here is, the last two are my favorite. This is a legacy on rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions and looking for a 1-word to 1-sentence answer.
Okay, got it.
To really see where you're at, where you're going, and what.
Let's do it.
There. So the first question is, what do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
For me, it is identifying the activities that I need a virtual assistant to do so that I can hire a virtual assistant specifically for the role I need them. Not just to hire them because I need help, but to identify the exact role so that I get the right person.
Amen to that. And what is the hardest thing that you've ever accomplished?
Hardest thing I've ever accomplished is overcoming the fear that I'm not good enough because of what I was told as a child, and that I really do know my stuff.
Okay. And what is the greatest success at this point in your life?
My grandkids.
Awesome. And what is one of your secrets you believe contributes most to your success?
Again, I would say discipline, but I would say it's my faith.
Okay. And what books would you recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
Oh my gosh. I read 3 to 4 books a month. I'm a speed reader, and I try to read them slow. I could read 3 to 5 a week. I would say the E-Myth. I would say, oh my gosh, it's Darren Hardy's book. And why am I brain fade on it?
Willpower Doesn't Work. Is that one?
Oh my goodness. No, it's about time management. But anyway, so Darren Hardy has a fantastic book. So before this is released, hopefully we'll have the link in there for everybody because I'll remember the name of it. It's a fantastic book. Solomon's Secrets is a fantastic book on wealth building and what Solomon did. Daily Words of Wisdom. It's a spiritual book, but it's also a business book. I don't know if you know, but in Proverbs, if you read Proverbs from end to end, you're going to have a master's degree in finance. And so this wisdom book, every morning I read this book to help me align my faith with my business. And so it's a daily book of wisdom, and it's just a daily read, and it says today this is what it is, and how you can apply it to your business, and I absolutely love it. Oh my gosh, I read so many books. So, Dave Ramsey, I love Dave Ramsey. Anything Dave Ramsey puts out, I love Dave Ramsey. I love Les Brown, as you know. I travel with Les Brown, so I love him, and so I just love listening to all of his quotes. And one of the quotes that I'm really using right now is that if you make your dream a casualty. Oh gosh, hold on, let me think. If you're casual about your dreams will become a casualty.
Yep, that is a good quote.
Yeah.
So don't be casual, guys. No, that's awesome. Okay, this is my favorite question. Probably the whole reason I do this podcast and invite people on it, because I want to know their answer. And we've touched on it a little bit throughout this episode. You definitely, I believe, have thought about this. I didn't know that it was your grandmother's question, but it is what it is. So building legacy, we're going to pretend that you've died, and now we're 6 generations away from you. So your great-great-great-great-grandchildren are sitting around talking about Jen's life and the legacy that she left. What do you want them to be saying about your legacy?
That I was present. That when you were in my company, I was with you. I was listening, I was learning, and I was laughing, and I was sharing with you.
That's awesome. I love it. And it's absolutely who Jen is. I can promise you that. I spent time with her. That is her. She is somebody who's absolutely present, something that I think the first time we met, she started telling me I need to be more present, which is true.
Did I say that? Oh my gosh.
Pretty sure it's
in my notes. I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry. I love it. Yeah. Like you say, you're years ahead of where I am in business, and I appreciate the correction, because I'm on my path to figuring this out as well, and so that's why I love being able to ask this, because this really, what I found when I ask this question about what people want to be having, what do people want said about them when they're gone, what I generally, it's almost like, what do you regret the most, except for a much more positive way of saying it, because it's what they wish they would be remembered about. And I love that. So No, don't ever feel bad about, even if you see something on Facebook, if you just want to reach out and say, hey, Sam, correction. I'm way open to correction. So.
Yeah. And the thing about the presence is that, about being present is that I had done a survey to some colleagues and some friends, about 6 years ago and said, if you could explain me in one word or, 2 words, no sentences, I'm just trying to develop my brand and, rather than me doing my brand the way I think it should be and way that people perceive me, I want to know how you perceive me. And someone came back and said, not present to me.
Oh.
And that changed my life. And I picked up the phone and I called him. I said, what do you mean? And I said, we just went networking together and I was this. And he goes, but you're so busy and you're so worried about going on to the next person in a networking event. And you're so worried about getting through the process of meeting with me that I don't think you're hearing me. And it changed my life.
Wow.
Changed my life. Yeah, and I had to learn how to do it, and now it's become second nature. But man, did it take some time. I was like, whoa, I'm not being present. I'm not looking at them. I'm not talking to them. I'm walking around and I'm saying, hey, keep talking. I'm listening. Keep talking. I'm listening. Right? And I stopped doing all that, and now I actually feel that someone would say that I'm present. So it's not a wish anymore. It's actually something that I am really, really working to continue to make sure that that's what people say.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Jen. Super excited for this. And I know it's going to change tons of people's lives. If you have more questions for Jen or would like her to come back on to the show, we can definitely have her on again. Just text my cell phone. It's 385-263-7699. I'll say that again. It's 385-263-7699. Text the word SAM, just SAM, to that number, and we'll get a dialogue going, and then you can let me know what your thoughts are and see what things could we ask her next time we have her on. So thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Sam. I really appreciate it, and I really love what you're doing for the world and trying to make the impact that you are. So thank you for all the wisdom that you give us as well. We really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. And we'll catch you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.